How are you setting your boundaries in your life? As we're getting busier and we're through this pandemic and people are talking about the blurred lines between their professional and their private life, how are you setting your boundaries? We have a guest special who knows exactly how to do this, is put it into a book that makes it easy to understand setting your boundaries. We're going to introduce her in just a moment. Before that, my name is Dr. Elsie Coe. I'm the CEO and founder of Lead Physician Leadership Program for a Physician. And I also am the CMO of American Endovascular and Amputation Prevention. If you go to my YouTube site under my name, Elsie Coe, or go to the short link bit.ly/Dr. Coe videos, there's a slew of videos on there with a lot of valuable information on topics that we did not learn in medical school or residency that you may find valuable, or you may find your colleagues should, or maybe people you're mentoring to find valuable. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tammie. Hi, Tammie. How are you
Hey,
doing?
all right, how are you?
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Tammie,
having
I'd like
me.
to introduce you, if I may. She's the author of this book that I was talking about. It's coming out February 3, right, Tammie?
Yep, everything.
Boundaries for Women Physician: Love Your Life and Career in Medicine. The book is going to be on Amazon, and it's a phenomenal book. I've already read it, and it's so good because it shares experiences of real physicians with each piece of knowledge that you're going to learn to take away, and it makes it easier to understand and implement in your life. So go get that book and remind yourself to get that. She's also has multiple leadership positions. She's a leadership coach as well for women. She co-founded this group called Pink Coat MD to help women thrive and really energize them and live their lives with purpose. And she has co-written a book called How to Thrive as a Woman Physician. And she also is the president of Elevate, a national organization under the American Medical Women's Association, the branch president in Washington State, the founder and director of the Pediatric Cancer Survivorship Program, and also the director of the MultiCare Provider Wellness Program. That is a handful. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about how we set our boundaries, Tammie, because you do so much, and I thank you so much for what you do.
Likewise.
Yeah. So I tell us a little bit about yourself. Why did you end up down this path of writing about thriving, helping women become better leaders, and now writing this next book on boundaries? Could you tell us a little bit about your story?
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking. Actually, everything about my life today, which I'm not sure if you know, it's in the book though. Actually comes out of probably the toughest time in my life about 3 years ago. So I really hit rock
Mm,
bottom in my career,
mm,
almost quit, came back.
mm. Yeah,
It was not unlike the reality for a lot of physicians today.
got it. So you are sharing through your story how to there's a lot of people out burned out there. Over
Yeah,
50% of us are burned out.
yeah.
So you're through your story and your platforms are helping women thrive through burnout, right?
That's the hope, and to help women, actually, honestly, all physicians, right, thrive and rise into leadership so that we can make things better for each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So, I think since this is a short podcast and I could talk to you all day, I know I can. Tell us maybe the top 5 things that we can do to take away in terms of setting boundaries for ourselves.
Yeah, I think the first piece too is just recognizing and understanding that the concept of boundaries didn't exist until the 1980s as a actual concept from therapists, and so we didn't grow up with it. Most of us, our parents didn't grow up with it. It wasn't modeled necessarily by the adults in our lives or by the leaders in our lives, right, through decades of our training and education. So it is a newer concept for many of us as adults, and especially as attending physicians. So I always start with that because it often is a really uncomfortable and difficult concept for most of us. But it's new. It's because it's new for us and we're still learning at this phase. And it's harder to learn things as we get older, as we found sometimes.
Yeah.
So it takes more work. So I start with that because I think often it's an uncomfortable concept for a lot of people.
Yep.
But
Especially during residency training, there were no boundaries, at least during my time.
no, well, yeah, and I actually think our medical training in particular trains us not to have boundaries because it's
Yeah.
all about the patient, which is a good thing in some ways, right? But not to the extreme, which is the reality for many of us. Like we give everything up for our patients, and it's not good for us. So,
Right. Yeah, and
so
now that we are in this pandemic, it's even worse, and people are finding that there are no boundaries at all now. It's all blurred. So, tell us what can we do?
I think the very first thing, if I had to come up with the top 5 things, the first would be that recognize that boundaries have to start from us. They start with us, right? And from within. They have to come from the inside out. So
Mm,
often when we think about boundaries, it's related to other people for the most part, right? It's how we interact with the world and the other people in our lives at work or at home or in each area of our lives. And it's not necessarily setting a boundary with other people outside of us first. It has to actually come from the inside. So we have to have a really strong understanding. This is why I love so much of your curriculum and what you teach, Elsie, is it has to start with a clear and strong understanding of who we are, our core values, right? Our personal mission, our vision, like
yes.
our why with a capital W. You got to have a really good, strong internal compass and know what
Yes,
our non-negotiables are.
that's
That's
right.
the first piece.
So good. And you put a lot of questions together in your book to talk about to get people to think in that way. And some people have never even had the chance to even think about what they want. I've spoken to some physicians, and the fact that you have the questions for people to actually to take that time, these very focused questions is going to really help people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we have to start with that. It actually is not only boundaries, but in life and leadership, right? How do we show up in the world?
Hmm.
We're so much more at ease when we're in alignment with the core of who we are and
Yep.
what we stand for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
So
what's
that's
number
one.
2?
Number 2, I actually think this is an important one for a lot of us, especially as physicians, because no one is harder on us than I think we are. Because
Oh,
we are
yeah.
like so high achieving, right? We had to be to get here. And
That's
so,
right.
and we have high expectations for everyone and ourselves, and in particular ourselves. So I think number 2 is actually we often sometimes need to create boundaries from ourselves. And by that, I mean creating boundaries from, which I actually think you touch on too in your work, which is just the negative, the criticism, the self criticism, the self doubt, the whole imposter syndrome piece. All of that, and the perfectionism, the things that really hold us back, they honestly hold us back.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
we
And
think,
make us very, very unhappy.
and yeah, very unhappy. And I honestly think it causes anxiety, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and really it serves a purpose. There is a purpose, and I do describe that in the book a little, just because I think it's a natural instinct for us to move toward that, and it's helped us get to where we are in some ways because it's pushed us forward.
Yes.
But when you hit the extreme again, it's not healthy, and
Right.
so we often have to actually just even starting to create awareness about some of those internal monologues or dialogues that we have can
Yes.
be incredibly powerful.
Right. Talk about a never-ending cortisol drip inside our bodies.
Right. Yeah, and we don't function up to our best when we're in that state. We don't learn
Mhm.
this in
We think
training.
we would be, but we're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, it's something's got to give. So thank you. Yeah. So again, more questions to reflect on in your book, and a story behind it with a particular physician. So thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
And the third one, I actually think a sign of when we want to be setting boundaries, but we struggle to, is when we feel guilty. So I think
Mm,
almost all of us know what this feeling is like, right? And it shows up differently for each of us. It might feel differently internally, physiologically for each of us. But I think we know when we have this feeling that we can describe as guilt.
mm.
And I
To notice
then
it. To
just to
notice it.
notice it, right? Start
Yeah.
by noticing. It's like self-awareness, right? And start by noticing, and then recognize when you feel guilty that it could be a sign that you're actually saying yes when you really want to be saying no.
Yeah. I've done that.
Me too. I say yes a lot. Which is why I struggle. Which is why I try, we teach what we most need to learn, right? Sometimes, I mean,
Mhm.
I forget who said that, but I think what we're most drawn to and passionate about is often what we often need to work on the most. So
Right. All right. Okay. Great.
Number 4, I would say this is maybe such a big one, especially now in the pandemic, as you alluded to at the beginning. It's just allowing ourselves to disconnect. And when a lot of us now work virtually, some of the time, or maybe we're doing telehealth from home, right? It's completely blurred. And so, how do we set clear, intentional boundaries so that we're not just working 24/7? Because who doesn't burn out when we're in that state, right? It's not healthy.
Yeah. I think you can measure how many hours you're on your phone, and mine is like typically 8
Yeah.
or 9 hours. I don't know about yours, but
Mine's
that's
probably
probably
more.
not good. That's not a
Really
good thing,
bad.
right?
This can't be good. Or the number of hours we're all on our screens.
I know. It's so, and that's not counting the computer. So,
Right. I know.
yeah.
And it's hard. Like that also keeps us from getting good sleep right at night, and it
Oh,
like
yeah.
it stimulates us. So we're not resting when we're in front of the
Actually,
screen.
one of my own clients in the last group that we had challenged everyone and challenged me, and I actually started putting my phone away in the bathrooms when I go to sleep because you look at your phone, like you said, that light hits the back of your retina. And it's like, ding, I'm going to stay up for another hour and try to sleep. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
allowing
that's
yourself to,
smart.
yeah. So
That's
really
really
being
smart.
mindful in all these things that you're talking about so far.
Yeah, and it goes for, I think almost all of us have a smartphone now that has our email and all the apps on it. So, I go through it's different for each person. Each person might want to do something different, but
Hmm.
we all know what our Achilles heel is, right? Like what our soft weak spot is.
Yep.
And mine is email. So,
Email. Oh, okay. Okay. Yep.
yeah,
Checking email way too much.
too much.
There are apps that actually get you to stop and
Mhm.
says you've been on your phone too much. Turn it off now.
Or I
I don't
think
know.
there's some apps that actually lock everything. So
Oh
you,
gosh, no, that wouldn't happen. I couldn't do that.
but I think those exist too, because this
Yeah,
is
so that's my New
yeah.
Year's resolution right there. Allow yourself to disconnect.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna remember that. Thank you. Just email me or text me every now and then to stop.
To remind you to stop.
Okay, and the last bit.
Yeah. I call it C equals MD/DO. So, and this becomes honestly because us physicians, we're so high achieving, and honestly, so many of us are perfectionists, right? And we got here because we're so good at what we do. We work so hard, but at some point, it has to stop. Like we don't have to be A plus because we were all probably like the top student in our high school or whatever, right? To get into the college that we wanted, to get into the medical school, to get in the residency, to get into whatever. And then we're like climbing the ladder after we finish our work, right? Our
I
training.
think you're smarter than me because my generation was easier.
I doubt it. I think it's even harder now. You
I
have
don't
kids, yeah.
know. Now it's impossible to get into college now. My
I
kids,
can't. I don't think I could get into college now if I did college.
ridiculous.
I know
Like
it is
2
kind of
million,
insane.
2 million more high school students per application year. Anyways,
Wow.
go on. So I'm sorry
Oh yeah. I want to get. I think the fifth one is to allow ourselves the permission to not be A plus all the time.
yeah.
There's a time and place to be A plus, right? That's like when we're with patients, when we're with
Hmm.
families, when we're doing the actual work as a physician in our leadership work. But there are times when C is good enough. So like I mean, all we had to do was pass to graduate, right, and get this degree. So I just say this because it makes a lot of us laugh because we're like, yeah, right, I'm going to be a C student, like, But it actually, like, I honestly aim for people who are really true perfectionists, and especially like a lot of physicians struggle with their charting in the EMR. I say like just go for C.
Yeah.
C work is fine. Just get what you need and close the chart and move on. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
perfect,
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from.
Some of my colleagues were good at that and I wasn't, and that's why I would stay there with one single meal for the entire day as an intern at Lenox Hill Hospital. And, and I was just trying to be perfect with my notes and the other people weren't. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So you're absolutely right. And really focused, I think, on what's most important that I have to get done. I write two lists out. I write the must do's
Mm.
and when I can. And I say these are the must do's that I have to get done, and if I can't get to the other ones, then I forgive myself. So being forgiving yourself more than and not being so harsh on yourself, I think is so important.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would say, what are your kind of your last words, in this short podcast for everyone to, in a nutshell, what would you say, overall with this whole boundaries topic?
I think it comes down to giving ourselves some grace as physicians. Um, we expect so much from ourselves, and I know we think others expect so much from us. But the reality is, I think we're honestly doing a good job. You're doing all right. And I think it's giving ourselves some grace in general, especially now at this point in the pandemic, because we
All
all
right.
need to give ourselves the same compassion that we give to our patients.
Thank you. And how can somebody reach out to you, Tammie? What's the best way to find out more about what you do and maybe reach out to you if they're interested in learning more about your coaching? And
Oh, sure. I'm at www.tammiechangmd.com. So with a IE. That's actually a nickname from freshman year of college and hasn't gone away. So I think I'm stuck with
okay,
it. But yeah, I actually have an assessment quiz, boundaries burnout meter in there. So that's actually a neat thing to take. It's a free quiz. So for anyone who wants to learn
excellent.
a little bit more. Yeah.
So
And then you
good.
can reach me there. You can email me through the website too.
Right. And then what about the pink coat? Do you have a website for pink
Yeah.
coat too?
Yeah. www.pinkcodemd.com.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for listening. And if you like this, please comment and share or like. I really appreciate the support. And we want to continue to do more of these interviews with amazing physician leaders like Tammie Chang. And if reach out to me if you have a topic and you want to be on this podcast to talk about something that we haven't talked about so far. I would love to hear from you. And if you're interested in our leadership course, which is starting January 10, a 4-month program for somebody who's not, who wants to learn how to be a leader, not necessarily have been a leader and or have these great communication entrepreneurial skills, go to leadphysician.org just to find out. And you can set up a call with me on my Calendly link, which is calendly.com/Dr. Coco. Coco is actually my nickname, Tammie. So it's funny you have a
I'm
nickname.
like, that's so cute. I love it.
So thank you everybody. Have a happy new year. I know I said that before, but take care, stay safe. And thank you so much, Tammie.
Thank you.